The views and opinions of the hosts and resource persons do not represent those of the organization, the university, and its stakeholders. Viewer discretion is advised.
Okay. And then through time naman, this might sound really nerdy. I learned to love math. Kasi sobrang nalungkot ako. Sobrang nalungkot ako midway through the term. Ayoko na, hindi ko na kaya to. Tapos, ang ginawa ko, I watched TED Talks regarding loving math. So, ayun, effective naman. Kaya kayo, guys, if you are very discouraged, TED Talks is the way.
Welcome, my e-learner enthusiasts, to the second episode of the Inner Nook podcast. I'm your host for the evening, ID 117's Jarrett Singian. And with me are my wonderful guests for the evening. So, hello.
Hello, I'm Jordan Marcus Sibug, ID 119.
Hi, I'm Julia, ID 118.
Alright, hello everybody. I'm Samuel Uy, ID 120.
I'm Lawrence and Agustin, and I'm ID 119.
Okay, everyone. First time in a while we did an actual podcast for today. I wanna ask you guys first. I guess how is it for you? Your first weeks in the second term, or actually anything in your personal life? How was it for you so far?
It's been really stressful, to start things off. I'm an officer, right? So I have a junior officer event. Just happened this morning, actually, and just stressful, but at the same time, it was really worth it since we got everything went smoothly. So I'm really happy about that. It's been more org works than ACADS than I'd like, but it's been good. It's been good. How about the others?
For me, my first week of classes, and I'm not lying when I say this, no, it felt like midterms na agad. My first week of classes felt like midterms. And it's because we're taking a thesis class na this term, and in INSYS it's called capstone. And for the first week of classes, even during the break, we already had to do research. So everything's been stressful and all that. And aside from that, for orgs, first week and last week of classes are the busiest, especially in my committee in LSES and in Sprint. So I think my first week of classes has been very, stressful, just like Jordan.
Have you already found your thesis advisor or what for your
Not
thesis?
yet, actually. Yeah, we're still looking for our advisor.
Okay. Hopefully it works out for you. Let's move on to Salle.
First week of classes. Okay. So for me, more of adjustment period talaga siya. Since ID 120 and we didn't really expect ourselves to enlist our own schedules. So overall, I think I got the schedule that I wanted. It's actually quite a funny story kasi nung simula, parang exciting to. I get to pick whatever schedule I want. I don't need to wake up 7:30 in the morning for my first class. Pero, nasa dulo tayo CCS students and then dulo nun at 120. Eventually, nung enlistment na natin, I just gave up. Sabi ko, kahit ano na, sige, just let me follow my flow chart, please.
So
Chinek ko din yung mga subjects ko for my next years, kaso wala din talaga. So buti na nag-open din ng classes. And sa classes naman, I think it's okay. I got the schedule that I wanted naman. Yung mga profs so far, they've been really good. Hindi pa naman masyado ganun kabigat yung ACAD, yung work in terms of ACADs. Siguro mostly sa orgs and then also sa things that I do outside school din. Pero overall, it's quite a fun first few weeks.
So since you're 120, you don't have any early enlistment yet, right? Since it was based on term 3.
I enrolled kasi noong term 1. I'm 120 term 1. And then term 2, we had to enlist for ourselves na.
Yeah.
So hindi siya
So,
automatic.
yeah, every term 2, ID 120. I mean, every ID 120 on term 2 had to enlist for themselves now.
Yeah, but they don't have like the DL thing, right? Because this
yet.
wasn't based on anything yet. Okay. I guess. But
The hardest freshman experience, really.
Yeah, I swear it's like hard. We didn't have that experience. You guys had it the most in this case. Like I can imagine. But in the end, were you able to like get your classes, like the ones that you wanted, or not? At least.
At first, I wanted all my classes to be in the afternoon so that I have time for myself and for time to spend with my family in the morning. Kaso, it went 180, so now I only have classes in the morning, no classes in the afternoon. But it's still fine. It's still fine.
How else? I guess maybe hopefully next term would be better in this case. Lauren, how about you?
My first week of classes was okay naman, but from the syllabus alone, I got really overwhelmed na kagad because I'm taking na like some of the majors for my course. So yeah, it wasn't that as chill as I expected, and the works are already piling up even though it's like second week pa lang. As for orgs, I think na-manage pa with schoolwork for now. But yeah, overall, it's okay naman so far.
All right. I hope everyone's doing well in this case. I don't know. It's really a hard term for everyone since this is like, what is this already? This is like our second, third, first, like our fourth term already online in this case. Because so it's been a year already since we had our quarantine stuff like that, and like I really want to go back to face in this case. Other than that, I just recently celebrated my 23rd birthday. So
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
You already created me like many times before, I swear. But yeah, I was like, so I remember before I celebrated my birthday last year, there was like the last few days before the quarantine started happening at that point. And then the funny thing was that, remember the first cases of COVID was like around BGC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I was at that time in my OJT in this point. So the first case was somewhere like around our street. So we were like, oh shoot, I have to be super careful at this point. And then you start this, and then it's like, it's super like, I guess I didn't take it that seriously that back then, because it was like, it's fine. It's like it only affects like older people. It's fine. But then of course, you know how bad things started to develop. Luckily, last year was like the week before everything got shut down already. So I was able to celebrate my birthday like outside, had like a restaurant. Now it's like all at home. So for me, it's still fine because I'm really happy with like being supported by my family and also my friends in that case. And then I guess for the first week of classes, so far manageable a bit. So one of the hardest thing right now is I'm taking a special elective on Japanese class. So
Ooh.
I was learning. So yeah, I already know a little bit of the phrases, like the basics like ohio and stuff like that. And then, but the most challenging part really is like hiragana, because you're learning a new alphabet at that point, and it's like really difficult because you have to memorize like maybe like 40 plus characters for like hiragana. And then unlike, for example, I know how to speak Chinese. So usually Chinese is fine for me because at least it was a pictograph. So you can actually like associate a word with how you write it, stuff like that. For this case, hiragana is like super hard. So you have to like make some weird, you have to make some guesswork on that. So for example, this character looks like a tail, and I'll say, oh, it sounds like te. So it looks like a tail, so te. Or something like this hiragana character is like noodles that are like messy, so it's called me. So that's one of the cases. So it's legit. It's like one of those really hard languages to learn, especially with the rules, with the writing system. And other than that, I guess I'm also under thesis. I'm already in thesis 2. And of course, at that point, it's kind of scary because this is the part where you start developing your software, and then it's like very pressuring because the best way to describe like thesis is that it's like you're digging for something. So because you're not sure where you're gonna end up after your research, because sometimes even if you really try hard, it might not end up well. So it's like you're digging far enough that you'll see like treasure at the bottom, or you're like digging far enough it becomes your grave at this point. That's like the best association for that, I guess. I guess that's like how it is so far. Since we're talking about the second term, let's move back to the main topic for today's podcast, which is our first term academic year. And as for the listeners out there, all the major batches are here. So 117, 118, 119, and 120 are here today, so that we can give like our first round of experience with like the first true academic year that's online classes. So we'll start off from 117, then we go down to 118, then 119, and then 120 in this case. So I'll start off, I guess. Yeah. So last term was kind of hard. So that was like our first true thesis at that point. So thesis one. But there was this other class that a lot of us were having issues with. It's called compiler, which is a class where you have to develop your own programming language. And then once you develop your own programming languages, you have to like make it work. Like you have to type in your programming language, like the code, and then be able to like run at that point. Like it has to interpret it at this point. Hardest part really is that there's no like references on it online, so it's really difficult for like most of us to like code it. And I remember like last term was super chaotic, especially with like the typhoons and stuff like that. And it's so, I guess it was very mind numbing for like most of us there, because like we have to balance this out with, of course, thesis, and it was like very like difficult in that case. So yeah, I guess let's move on to Julia for 118. How's 118 doing during this?
Hello. So last term, actually parang hindi ko na feel yung last term. Parang sobrang bilis lang nang nangyari. Pero in terms of my classes, except for that one class, I think everything went well naman. That one class, parang we had to develop a inventory management system. And since, diba, ang daming ang suspension and may situation pala nangyari in that class, parang na-delay yung pag-develop namin ng system. And I think may part din na personally yung problem was more of personal, since time management. And personally, that was the first term ko as a vice president for 2 orgs. So like, yung workload was yung workload parang sobrang dami, kasi kailangan mo mag-prepare, of course, for your orgs, and you also have to balance it with your ACAD. To be honest, parang mas na-prioritize ko pa nga yung orgs noong time na yun over my ACAD.
Relatable.
Diba?
What is ACADs?
Ayun. So, I guess, yung iba naman, in general, yung workload and all of the other requirements that I had to do, parang manageable naman siya. More on personal nga lang, time management, of course, all those things. Ayun. In terms of grades naman, I think what's more important is, yun nga, satisfied ka sa nakuha mong grades. And I think yung nakuha ko naman grades for term 1, I think okay naman siya. And aside from that pala, gusto ko lang din i-share, last term, I had my first minor class. I took a minor in data science, and it was fun. So, ayun, sana pagpatuloy ko yung minor na yun.
Are you planning to take the actual minor itself, like the minor degree, right?
Yeah. The minor degree.
I want that too.
Last term I was already starting to take my minor right now in cybersecurity, and it was it's such interesting, especially since for my case, like 117 is like, we don't have like a specialization for us, so everyone's like, CSST. Ours is just CS. So it's like something we can for me, it's like something to feel complete, I guess, because we're like like it's just CS. There's not like in the degree everyone's like, oh, specialization, software technology and like that. And like, oh man, I will have that because that's what I was like applying for when I enrolled and stuff like that. But let's go back a bit to like I guess like org stuff. I remember also having that issue. I was like, at one point, I was also like VP into kind of like VP into orgs. I was like OIC in one org, and it's like it's the most craziest experience I had because like it's like you have to balance everything out. One is like, okay, I'm done with this task. Oops, this other org is
There's more.
Yeah, exactly. Ganun.
And then it's like ACADS is there, but you don't want to touch ACADS because it's like
True.
It just makes you feel bad.
no more. It's too painful. It's like I don't know because it's like with orgs at least there's like a shortcoming gratitude once you like complete the task. It's like, oh, I'm so proud of it, like that. And then when it comes to like ACADS, of course the gratitude is like getting a high grade and stuff like that for sure. But it's like, is it worth it? Your mindset there is like, oh, is it worth it? But yeah, it's for sure it has to be worth it. Of course, like ACADS over orgs and stuff like that. But it feels different because of like the situation we're in. It's like, I don't know. If it was face to face, maybe it would have been easier, I guess.
I think it would.
Yeah. Agree.
Just to like think about ACADS, because like now you have to actively like work for ACADS. Before you could like you'd have to be in the classroom and you have no other choice unless you want to cut, but then you're cutting, right? So I think it's much easier. I think for like orgs, if you don't do your job in the orgs, you're letting other people down. But if you don't do your job in ACADS, you're only letting yourself down. So it works out better.
I was thinking like I've noticed now it's like there's no like peer pressure now in like classes because you don't see everyone there. Like once you like finish class, you go and see like for example you're in Cox and you see people like working on their projects. I'm like, oh shoot, I need to I have to work on this already. It's like, oh no. But now it's like, I don't see anyone doing it. I'm not that motivated. And then when you look at Messenger, it's like, oh, can you finish this work already in org? Something like that. Like LSE is like, oh, can you finish this article? I'm like, oh shoot, okay, fine, I have to do this fast. So I guess, I guess, I don't know. It just feels different now. Maybe it would have been better if it was on face to face. Anyways, let's move on to Laura.
For me, my classes last term, actually, I only took like 12 units, but I still had a hard time, mainly because of prog. Because basically, I'm a shifty. So yeah, I was like medyo na-shocked since I'm from CLA. And then I was overwhelmed with the workload. Yeah. But yeah, okay naman yung other subject. It's just really prog. But I'm still glad since I passed. I don't need to retake. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I still learned a lot kahit na di ganun kataas grades ko. For the classes mismo, I think I could see naman that the profs are really doing their best in carrying it out properly despite the online setup. And I think they did well naman. Like, I feel like for most subjects, DLSU is doing well in terms of like the curriculum and the kind of activities we have to do so that we can still like learn as much as possible. And yeah, that's it. I'm hoping that I can do better for the second term since my grades lowered. But I don't know, since the subjects this term are more challenging. Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah,
You can do
sure.
it.
Thank you.
I guess just like for example, coding is really I think you develop the skill over time if you keep practicing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For sure. What was your course before you shifted?
Oh, I was formerly in ISJ BSA, a dual degree.
Can you explain?
ISJ is Japanese studies and then BSA is accountancy. Yeah, pero I shifted since like I wasn't really interested in like becoming a diplomat or an accountant. Yeah.
I guess later in the conversation I'll ask you how's MPs for you guys, but that's for later. Let's move on to Jordan.
Okay. Honestly, my like last term was such a hard term for me in terms of accounts. I really like chose to do more org work because I really didn't like my subjects. Not because of the profs or anything, but because of just how difficult the online situation was. I had CSNC, CC Infom, CS AdProg, and I'm forgetting the other one, but it's okay. Basically, yeah. Those subjects were really hard for me just because of the online setting. I didn't really, even though it's already like it was the third term in an online setting. I couldn't adjust well. I don't really know why. And that's why like this term, I'm really trying to focus on getting better in terms of ACADS. But yeah, like I think a majority of the term, I wasn't even like, I wasn't even listening na din sa mga classes because I just like got burnt out so much from it. And like, it's like the usual thing where, you know, if you don't listen in one class, then the next class compounds and it's like, you don't understand it even more. And there's more incentive not to listen because like, you don't understand it anyway, even if you tried. But
Yeah.
like, you know, I tried my best to catch up.
Relate.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
last term for me. I don't know. I know like most every prof is like really trying their best naman on, especially like CCS profs. I know naman that they're really trying their best to like, you know, make it easier for us to get used to like the subject. But it's just that the current situation is really bad for us. I don't know. It's I guess like coding aspects also because like though like coding is like for me it's like you really is a self-study type of skill you have to do because you learn like based on like for example your machine projects or your coding assignments like that, but like especially like your first years in like CCS, that's like your building block, so you really need your professor's help in that case, like
True.
try to explain how like the language works, the structure, and like the logic in itself, I guess. But it's just that it's hard to communicate here. It's like hard also to get like engagement out of everyone because you don't see them like online because you know I know it's like you see. I mean, you still see them like on their face cams, but it's like it's just not the same.
It's still
before.
different, yeah.
Yeah, and then like when you look around with people, like you don't see anyone, so it's like it feels very disconnected in that sense. You guys think that we might come back to face by third term or not? It's over.
I don't want to believe.
I want to believe like
Yeah.
especially for like 117 in this case because we're the graduating batch and then you know
Yeah.
like have our online graduation itself. But I don't know.
It's online everything at this point.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm really excited to see like the froshes. Just because like
Yeah.
I'm in TMD, right? So I didn't really get to experience the same experience that other TMD people had, meeting the junior officers and getting to know like everyone talaga and hanging out. But you know, we make do with what we have.
I'm assuming it's like you have like way harder time than, for example, like for sure, like compared to other TNDs before.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
Yeah.
you have the only way you can like contact is like through Messenger or sometimes like Discord when you have like meetings and stuff like that. I guess I don't know.
It's a totally different beast.
And I guess we can ask the Frosh in this call right now. So I don't know for you since already this is your first year in La Salle. How's it like? How for you? How's your entire experience so far?
My entire experience so far. I think for me, kasi when I was in senior high school, we also had online classes. Even though wala pang COVID, we were like, 4 days a week, face-to-face, 1 day online. So, pero kami, we treat it as like, vacation, free weekend. No one really took it seriously. Pero ngayon, I guess we have no choice. Siguro, one thing that I realized when I got into college, especially in CCS, is I had so many gaps in my math knowledge. Grabe. I didn't expect my math to be this hard. Even dividing fractions, I was like, ano to? So I was that far behind. So I really had to study a lot of things. Feeling ko bumalik ako elementary. Okay. And then through time naman, this might sound really nerdy. I learned to love math. Kasi sobrang nalungkot ako. Sobrang nalungkot ako midway through the term. Ayoko na, hindi ko na kaya to. Tapos, ang ginawa ko, I watched TED Talks regarding loving math. So, ayun, effective naman. Kaya kayo, guys, if you are very discouraged, TED Talks is the way. TED Talks is the key.
It's that way to get your toxic.
Kasi, studying
it's like the way to motivate you in that case.
Yeah. TED Talks talaga. Opens your eyes.
Don't be chained up.
Fixing my bad study habits. Kasi you really have to practice math. If ever may homework na binigay yung prof nyo, please try to solve it. Huwag nyo lang i-symbolab or i-mathway yan. Kasi it will hurt a lot in the long run. Ano ba? Sa prog naman, prog wasn't really a problem for me personally. Kasi I've taken previous programming classes outside school. So, prog wasn't the problem. Math talaga yung problem ko. And then, Canvas, medyo scam yung Canvas. Meron akong isang grade sa Canvas. Nakasulat doon 110%. Ako, tuwan-tuwa ako. Ano, 5? Yes! So, pagkatingin ko doon sa, evaluate, ang tawag doon? Basta yung card. Biglang 3 lang. So, sabi, bakit 3 lang? 110%. Grabe. Baka kailangan mag-math nitong prof ko. Joke lang.
Wow.
Sorry.
I guess. Go.
In terms of prof dun sa programming, I think it's really, he really did well. Grabe. Shout out to you, sir. Ang nangyari kasi, sobrang few ng sync classes namin. And for some, I think that would be hard. Pero it really encourages yung self-learning. Kasi I really do think, like you, Kuya Jarrett, na prog is a lot of self-learning. Yeah. Google, learn from your errors. Bakit ganito yung error ko? Hello, I don't understand this error. What does this mean? Pero, yeah. Through time, parang, matatakot ka na dun sa error. I've experienced this before. I know how to solve this.
You can't scare me again.
Yeah, battle scars. So you become tougher the more you do it.
Like legit, I think the only thing that makes us programmers is that we just know how to use Google better.
Yeah.
We're actually
professional Google searchers.
Professional Google searchers. Oh, I have this problem. No worries, I'll just search it there. It's like that. And normally, like YouTube videos also, like they really help you. I guess, like especially when you go to like bigger projects, like web development and like app development, you usually go to those videos online and say like, oh, how. Like you go to like the Indian YouTubers and you'll see how to like develop this like program. It's like, oh, okay, because they really help you a lot in this case, because at least because for this case you can like go back and review it itself, and then they go in depth a bit, and then it's like it builds out the structure. I guess that's what I really like about I guess in our courses that we have resources online. Well, most of the sources online, and then we can like debug or like know how to do like for a certain feature or solve a bug. Other than like ACADS, I guess one thing I'm really curious about is how are you with your block, since you guys really haven't met on like face to face, so everything is online. How is it right now? Are you guys like talking to each other? You guys meet friends and stuff like that?
Actually, I'm really happy with my block. I've asked fellow Frosh din na hindi ko ka-block, and then they've told me na halos hindi sila magkakakilala. Yeah, it's really hard for them. Sa block namin, ang cool kasi ang dami nag-i-initiate to really get to know each other, and ang cool kasi nung Christmas, we had a Christmas party, online block Christmas party.
Wow.
And then even though we haven't really met each other face to face, we were able to organize those kind of things. So I think it's a really hopeful thing na may potential tong online class if ever tumagal pa siya.
At least for you, at least your block is like really tries to like make the best out of things right now. I guess for my case, it would be like I guess it's no secret in my batch IID 117 that my block 2 is really the quiet block. So little story time is like, so there's this like stereotype within our batch that my block is like the quietest ones because we don't really talk to each other. Then like in class, we don't really talk to each other. We just sit down and we just stare at each other for like two terms, I guess, in first year. And like it was such an awkward experience for everyone at that point because like compared to like the other blocks, the other blocks, they were like way more louder than us. They're like talking and they were like hanging out here. Us is like, hi, we just say hello. And then normally we talk to each other more. What connected us more was like in those early days was like, like ACAD stuff like that. So how do you answer this problem, or like something like how do you do the hexadecimal conversion in those days? So it's like very hard for us. I can't imagine doing that now. Like for our block, if our block was in like Frosh and then coming in online, I don't think we would have gotten that close after a while, because our block got closer like in third term. We started talking to each other, then we started mingling with the other blocks because that was the blocking times already. So it was like we started to like mix around, and it developed a lot of friendships along the way with that. But like I just can't imagine before. Though I would say our group chats are very chaotic for sure during the early days. That's really like where we talk more rather than like face to face. In my like view, I guess.
Tired of academics? How about organizations? Or of different things that you can't seem to figure out? Maybe you just need a time to breathe, to be in silence as you reflect. Join us as we discover the peace in the midst of the storm this coming April 30 from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. For more details, you could visit us at facebook.com/LaSalle Computer Society.
The views and opinions of the hosts and resource persons do not represent those of the organization, the university, and its stakeholders. Viewer discretion is advised. I guess like with Sam and Lauren, since you guys are like new to like CCS, how is machine projects for you?
Currently for Prog 2, wala pang nasasend na specs. Pero when I did my MP for Prog 1, I think I did it quite early. Pagka-send nung specs, I was like, uy, let's G. Since ayun nga, I had previous experiences in prog, so I'm kind of familiar na dun sa mga concepts. So I decided to do this weird one. So basically siya, parang graphical game. Kaso C pala yung ginagamit, kaya ang hirap.
So you using like the outside library for like graphics for
graphics, yeah. Although I didn't commit on doing it kasi I really didn't want to learn like yung graphics library and how to place it into DevC kasi I'm not really that familiar with DevC. That's parang I don't want to learn another thing.
Yeah, I guess.
Mas may math pa on the side, so mahirap na yun.
Ang hirap pa niya intindihin. Puro text. So I decided to just settle dito sa other thing na more on text-based siya. So overall, it took me around 2 weeks of unrushed work. I think that's the beauty of doing your MP soon.
Yes.
Kasi you really get to relax and not rush things.
Sana all.
May nakita akong meme sa Facebook, yung gaming chair, yun daw yung coding chair. And then yung toilet, yun yung debugging chair.
Yes.
And it is extremely true.
Funny you mentioned graphics because I was like close with some of my high school friends who are in Eng. So they also had like they were doing some coding as well, and they were doing it in C. And the funny thing is that they were doing the like what you said, the the graphics library at that point. So I didn't know anything of the graphic design, but I was like, asked them, hey, send me your codes. I can probably like help you debug it or something like that. Because I was like that time I was like I'm still very close with my friends, even till now. Like if it's with those friends, if they have ever any like coding projects and they need like a little help with stuff like that, I would like, okay, let me check out your codes. Oh, I noticed that you have some errors here and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, you can have it here. I guess move on to Lauren. Like how's like coding in MPs and stuff like that?
Listening to Samuel, I was like, wow, I did the exact opposite of what he did. So like, right people recommend you to like, oh, you start early and all that. But like, I wasn't able to, kasi nga, like, I know nothing about programming. I don't even know what C is and all that. So like, even though my prof gave me the MP guidelines early, I wasn't able to start it kasi like, we didn't cover all the lessons yet. So I was like, oh well. So yeah, I wasn't able to start my MP as soon as I hoped to. So I actually ended up making a bulk of the program around 2 weeks before the deadline. Actually, dapat 1 week lang yung time ko left to do the MP. But luckily, my prof extended the deadline for another week. So I got 2 weeks. Pero kahit na 2 weeks, like I was doing it stressfully within those 2 weeks. Like I was cramming so hard. So I remember pa na the due date was on a Monday. And so on Sunday, I was awake from 8 a.m. to like 5 a.m. on Monday. And then I slept for 3 hours. And then I woke up again at 8 a.m. And then finished it until 11 p.m. Yeah, that's why when I was listening to Sam, I was like, good for you. Because mine was so stressful. But yeah, I'm glad because at least I got a good grade on it. Yeah.
Pays off. Hard work pays off.
I remember like I was doing that for my programming. I think I had like a week left also for like the first half of my MP for my first term. Our like class was actually easy. We had to like calculate some values of like sine, cosine, and stuff like that. And then, but the hard part is that it has to be exact numbers. Like it has to match what's the output there. And it was like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do this? So I spent like I remember like 2 nights I was spending like 8 a.m. to something like maybe like 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. just to figure out what's happening, because we were supposed to use something like a Taylor series on how to get the answers. Then I finally like understood everything. I was like, oh, it's like that. And then lots, like light bulbs clicked and then made things easier. And then at that time we weren't allowed to use yet functions. So everything had to be sequential, everything. So everything was all in just in the main function. So it was I guess it was such a messy reading because of that. Because of the sets
One
set
long
by
in
our
main.
prof. Oh gosh, it was so long.
So
It was
hard.
like,
So hard to keep track of things.
I had to like write like comments there. This section is for like calculating
Yeah.
5.
We had the same MP, Jarrett.
Really?
Yeah, the sine and cosine thing.
Taylor series, right?
Yeah.
My gosh, I remember that. To be fair, that was actually the easiest one compared to the others that they got. My other like class, because there's like class A, class B. The others had to do like something like a Pokemon challenge, how to play Pokemon
I
on
remember.
C. And I was like, I'm so happy. I'm like at the start, I was like, I wish I had that. Looks more fun. Then when I hear the horror stories that they're having, it's like, I'm fine. I like my
You're
MP.
glad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tapos yung sa atin pa was parang milestone
Muscle
thing
1, muscle 2,
na parang
muscle
you have to submit this first
Yeah.
and then submit this
Oh,
and then
yeah.
submit
Yung
this.
parang
Yeah,
parts.
tapos yung sa ibang class ata parang isang buo kailangan isang bagsakan may sasabit.
Yeah.
Ayan, so I guess that made it easier then.
Yeah, I
It's
don't know.
interesting though, because I like relate to both Sam and Lauren. Because the way I did my MP was I started early and then didn't do it for like the whole middle of the term, and then just like crammed it all at the end. I was like, I'm so masipag. I'm gonna do all of it. And I was like, I forgot about it for the middle of the term. And at the end, I was like, wait, I'm not yet done with the MP, no? And I just crammed it in like a week. That was like the worst experience. So I related on both. And I was like, I did that din pala. I did both of those. Such a bad experience. Make
Not
sure if you
good.
start early, you finish early. Then
Yes.
Yeah.
just start.
Not good. Not gonna lie. As you go like beyond the years, like third year, fourth year, like if you finish your MP like 2 days before the due date, that's considered early now.
Yeah, that's
For
right.
most of us. That's considered early already. I guess now, especially as we're developing like actual systems already, it's like it's so complex that you
can't do
really,
it in
you can't really cram it. You
Yeah.
know? You really have to have good time management at that case, especially for example, like in a software engineering class. That not everyone's going to be coding in this class. It's going to be some people will be code. There's some people will be coding. Those are the developers. Some will be the testers, quality assurance. So they're going to be testing if there's any bugs for that case, and they'll report it. Then you have something like business analysts. Those are the people that because you have an actual client. For our case, we had an actual client that we had to like give them they wanted a project and you have to develop it for them. So the business analyst will talk to the clients and the other stakeholders. And then there's the project manager. That's the guy who keeps everyone in line, I guess, in the time management stuff. And then of course you have to follow this development framework, something right now you guys are doing waterfall. I guess in like the simplest way is like waterfall, which is like sequential stuff. Like you do it straightforward, and then but in this case you have like many milestones in this case. When you reach this date, what is your progress? Because that's how things for certain classes, for like especially in the ST stuff like that.
Mhm.
So little stuff to know before you reach those days, like your heavy code programming days, I guess.
This isn't heavy yet. Joke.
Yeah, this is just the beginning.
Scary.
This is the beginning.
It's fun naman.
Anyone else has a MP story to share?
Going back, same kami actually ni Lauren na I had a difficult time din with prog. Tapos, yung mga students like Samuel, yung may prior knowledge na about programming, ayun yung source ng struggle ko. Kasi, alam mo yung
Sorry.
no. Alam mo yung ibang students, ang dami nang nagagawa, ganyan.
Yeah.
Tapos yung nape-pressure ako kasi wala ako any background sa programming. Tapos sila, ang dami nilang natitype, nako-code, ganyan. Tapos ako, wala pa ako nasa start, oh my God, ganyan. Nakaka-pressure, parang ganyan na feel ko nung fresh ako for Prog 1. Tapos ayun, I had to ask help from my blockmates, ganyan. Tapos ayun, thankful naman ako na tinulungan nila ako. Yun yung story ko sa Prog 1.
Actually, same din. I had a classmate na C pa lang yung ginagawa, right? So, you're not really delving into mga libraries and stuff. Tapos nakita ko yung MP niya. May music. Like when you turn it on, there's a song play. And then there's colors. Yung sa akin, black and white lang. Tapos it's like, that one's like blue and there's like music playing. Tapos may sounds pa and stuff. I was like, wow, I'm so far behind. But then eventually you realize na parang you don't really need to be ahead of the curve or something.
That's true.
Parang, learning talaga on your own pace. And then, I mean, it's just to make it look prettier and stuff and to show that you have more knowledge, pero it's definitely not required. You can do like I would say bare minimum, pero yung parang, as long as you fulfill the parang objectives of the project, you're good already. So,
I guess I have one weird story. One weird story is like, have you ever did like a machine project? Like, what was the latest you ever did? You ever submitted a machine project?
Na-withdraw ako, so technically, one of my subjects was deferred pala, not withdrawn. So technically, like a year after the submission date, the original submission date. But
I guess,
it doesn't really count.
Yeah.
Because it's differentiated.
I had this experience before with one of my classes, somewhere around something to do with machine learning. So the specs was really just to improve upon the efficiency of the program. Like it can complete more levels than the original The problem was that we had no idea how to do it. It's like there's no guide. There's like no guide. You just like use your intuition, try to make it more efficient and much smarter. And then it turns out we submitted it like 30 minutes before the submission date. And that was like second year. I was like only second year, so it wasn't like we did nothing to the project until that time.
Oof.
So we didn't touch any of the codes. We just looked at the project and we just like moved. Maybe we touched like a bit of the stuff, and it doesn't do anything. So we were like so lost, and we were like dying at that point. And all we did was like we changed some like the distance form to like Manhattan or something like that. I forgot already what I did.
How did it go though?
We passed. That's what I remember. We had 3 projects then. I just remembered. Oh yeah, we just passed there. There was 2 other projects after that. So it's like, oh, I'm so happy we had to do that. Actually, do you guys ever had like those classmates who are like so smart in programming, but then they do it like the last minute, like 3 days before submission, they started doing the projects, and yet they still completed it. Have you ever had those people yet?
I have many of those kinds of people. Even if they cram, it's like they're not cramming naman din. Yung cram nila is like, 2 months of working for us, but their cram is like the same quality pa din.
True.
Like, damn.
Especially when it was back to face when you see them out in like Gox, and you see like, hey, how's it going? Have you started? Nope. And then you see, and then like by the time you're already done with the project, I just started now. Like it's like tomorrow's the submission already, dude. You still haven't started, and it's those big projects, and yet they still pass. That's like crazy for them. I have no idea how they do it.
And they're not even like nervous or anything. They're like, yeah, I'll start later.
Yeah. But yeah, those like first year to second year, those days. Third year is like you can't do that anymore because everything else is now group works. So like groups of 3, groups of 6, groups. Largest we ever had was group of 8. I remember. Oh, maybe it was like 10. Also, I forget now. But group of 8 pure coding stuff only. And then that was like the design patterns subject like that. So it was kind of crazy for us on that.
Wait, I think for Froshes, like, I mean, their idea of MP, it's very like one-dimensional so far because it's like they haven't really experienced the many different types of MPs. Like, even I'm only in second year, so I haven't experienced that many types of MPs. But once you guys reach the CS INSI type MPs or the CS AdProg type MPs, where it's like mini, it's like smaller tasks, so it's more specific and more focused. But then I'd say those are more fun than the actual big projects because you really get to experiment, and it's so specific that you can just like experiment with it and not be afraid that if you ruin something, it'll ruin the whole thing. Once you guys will get there.
Once you move on to like object-oriented programming, that's when the fun begins instead of like the sequential stuff.
Yeah.
Are we scary, you guys?
I hope not.
A bit.
All they can do is laugh.
Sorry.
It's okay, guys. Just don't worry. It's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be fine for now. Once you go 3rd year, 4th year, that's when you die.
That's when you win.
Enjoy living for now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's like what made it bearable back in 3rd year for me was like face-to-face, because during those times you can like ask people for help. Like when you see people like right beside you from your blockmates or classmates, they'll say, can you help me debug this program, something like that. And you're like, okay, I'll help you with it. And then it's like there's a way more collaboration back then in face-to-face compared to now. Like now it's harder to ask people for help now. Even with your group mates, it feels like you're more alone.
Yeah, definitely.
In that case, if you understand. Because now, like only now we started like more collaborating. So what we normally do now is like we go on Discord and then we screen share the programs and we'll like check on each other and stuff like that. See how the program is. That's how we did it for our MPs last term. Yeah, we did that, something like that. Hope you guys like, before you reach your big MPs, like when you go to Java, like that, hope you're ready face to face. So it's like you guys, it's easier for you guys to like debug and stuff like that. I guess to wrap up our podcast for today, I guess what do you think are the best tips for people on machine projects?
Start
Like-
early and finish earlier.
Start
Um,
early.
I think I think you can kind of compartmentalize and take it in chunks. I've had many experiences with not only with myself but with people I've heard from. You really get so scared to start just because there's so much to consider, there's so much to think about, and I think if you try to break it down into smaller parts, it becomes a lot more a lot easier to get through instead of going like all in one. I think that's another thing I learned then when I started making MPs. Try to have a plan before you start. Try to break it down and start from there.
Was definitely for that case. I guess another thing that it'll be nice to learn, to like start off early, especially when you start doing your group projects, like maybe pairs and stuff like that. Learn about version control when you do collaborations already, like GitHub. Have you guys heard of GitHub at this point?
Oh yeah.
I use it for my own projects.
Ooh, I see. Lauren, have you heard about it? I guess.
Yeah, I've tried using it to like run some of my programs when DevC wasn't working, but I haven't used it in class.
If ever it's like still C stuff, if ever, you can use like I guess GitHub desktop because that's what I normally use. I don't do the console commands till now. I don't have to use the console commands that well compared to it. I still use that as my basis. I guess other than that, because like back before I learned version control, what we usually do is like we go on Messenger and we just send each other codes. Like this is version 1, this is version 2, this is version 3, or like on G Drive and stuff like that. So I guess I hope you guys start using that before they start teaching you. And I guess the most important, of course, the most important is really time management, especially when you go to those bigger projects, web development, app development, or like system development itself. Like it's like at a certain point you need to plan out from the start when you will have to finish this certain feature, and then how would you manage everyone in the team? Like by this point, this feature is done. So therefore, like for example, in this case, like your testers will be able to like debug it already and try to break your program. Does anyone else want to add?
Siguro for me, especially dun sa mga future CCS students. Wow, I feel like a kuya. 120 feels like a kuya.
121, let's go.
120 plus dyan. I think we should really realize na for me, coding is the last step of the process. I feel like when we code, sobrang useful ng paper and whiteboards to really visualize kung paano yung flow ng program. And I think kasi sobrang dali ma-mental block when you're typing all these things and then iniisip mo, ano yung syntax dito? How do you write this? How do I make this happen? So I believe na if you know what you're supposed to do, it's gonna make everything so much easier, and realize na when debugging, most of the things happen when you're not sitting in front of your computer. Siguro when you're taking a walk or lying in bed, diba, thinking about your life decisions, dun mo ma-realize, uy, ito ata yung problem dun sa code ko. Tapos pagkabalik mo dun sa computer mo, uy, may problem pa din. Pero at least may progress ka. So, yun lang naman.
Anyone else have anything to contribute on how to deal with machine projects?
I think for me, what's important is when you read the MP, you need to make sure to clarify everything with your prof. Because, based on my experience, parang there's some instructions now, it's kind of ambiguous. Like there's a lot of ways to interpret it. And I think that was my mistake. I didn't fully clarify all the steps and requirements. So I had some deductions for those. So yeah, that's one tip. You should really clarify with your prof like exactly what they're asking for, because sometimes it's not complete yung nakasulat sa MP guidelines. And also, since like what I said, sometimes it's not possible to start as early as you would like sa MP. What I found helpful was to make a checklist out of the MP instructions and create an outline of the things first you should include, and then later when you have time what you could include, like extra things that you can add so that you can prevent errors when running the program. So yeah, for me, I think planning is as or even more important than making sure you have enough time, because if you plan well, like coding it will be fast na lang. So what's important is you need to understand the lessons and know exactly what you need to do per part. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super true, especially with the making sure which you were able to accomplish the requirements, and then like if it's something unsure, like it's best to just ask the prof about it and not just give it up the chance, because I have lots of like machine projects that got minus because I didn't clarify on certain stuff. So always ask, either at least even if it's not your prof, make sure you ask your fellow classmates on that, especially with those, and then like double check everything, because I don't know, I had bad experience. I had like trauma from that. It was so bad. But yeah, that's a good tip. Anyone else before we end?
I agree sa mga sinabi niya din, like ni Lauren, ni Jordan, Samuel, and you then, Jarrett. Like, start early, and yun nga, planning. And like what Jarrett said, in the future, yung mga MP nyo, mag-level up siya, of course. And yun nga, sabi nga ni Jarrett, may mga roles. So, as a tip, from third years and fourth years, siguro if you have time, start exploring na kung ano yung role na fit for you. For example, if you are more of a front-end developer, back-end developer, QA or business analyst, and project manager, ganyan. If you have time, explore na kung ano yung role na kukunin nyo in the future para hindi na rin kayo mahirapan when the time comes.
For sure. For sure about that one. Especially, not only also in like projects in your class, but also once you apply, for example, like OJT or actually in job interviews, like you know what you want to be, because a lot of us assume when we entered college that we'll be developers, but in reality, everyone picks their own path on where their career is going to be. You want to either be like a tester, you want to be a developer, you want to be a business analyst. You have lots of roads in CCS on where you want your job career to go to. And actually, most of the times it's going to go, like the main goal is like to become like a PM for that case, if you want to still be in like the developing side of like the IT industry. Yeah, and especially like once you go to software engineering classes or like pros dev, for my case in my curriculum, and you really at that point you should know what you want to do, what's your strengths at that point. So I think the last thing before we end, I'll just say one last step, which is always YouTube and Stack Overflow will always be your friend in this case. Your Indian YouTubers will always be there for you. They're like, you need a concept to teach you, go there, go there and learn about it. And try, if you don't get what you're learning in class, consult not just on YouTube but also your friends or your blockmates or classmates on the lessons, because I guess what CCS is really focused more on collaborations with everyone. You really have to collaborate with everyone just and able to get your project done, or even just asking help, because I think that at least in our like industry or in our jobs, it really is a collaborative work, and you really need to like be there for one another, and also to help each other, and also ask help from others. So I guess this is the end of our podcast. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy right now our podcast. Smash like or whatever, and I hope to see you. Goodbye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
The views and opinions of the hosts and resource persons do not represent those of the organization, the university, and its stakeholders. Viewer discretion is advised.